Nau mai, haere mai, and welcome to this council meeting of the 25th of July. Welcome to elected members, councillors, community board members, chief executive and staff. I'll start with the council blessing. Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā taka ki mua i o mātou aroaro. E pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau mahara hua pai mō ngā hapori e mahi nei mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa ki a whaihua ki a tō tika tā mātou mahi. A, mā te maia te tere whakamua me te hihiri, ka taia te arahi i roto i te kotahitanga me te aroha. We'll move on to item 3, apologies. I haven't been advised of any. Note that Councillor Hanford is on a leave of absence. Declarations of interest, does anybody have any? We have nothing under 5 or 6. I'm not seeing any public speakers today. So move on to item 8, members' business. Any leaves of absence can be advised to the Mayor's office. I haven't been advised of any matters of an urgent nature. We have nothing under item 9, so we move to reports. 10.1, amendment to standing orders for meetings of council. Anna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morena, everyone. So this report really just asks for an amendment to standing orders to keep things as they are now, where people attending online can count towards quorum. So I'd like to take most of the report as read, but happy to answer any questions.
I believe Councillor Coe is moving and Councillor Wilson is seconding the recommendation in front of us. That is recommendations A 1 through 4 on page 6. Any debate? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Oh, we haven't quite finished voting. Mr. Mansell, did you have something to say?
Just point out that
I'll take the vote again after he's spoken.
within the minutes, it notes everyone who enters and leaves the meeting. I just wondered how that was going to be accounted for. People sit there online with their camera off, and you don't know whether they are in or out of the meeting. Maybe there should be a requirement that the camera must stay on all the time and the person there be visible. Otherwise, they can switch off, go off, make a cup of coffee, miss most of the debate, come back and not be counted as being absent.
Is there any provision for that under the legislation? No. Unfortunately, that's beyond our control because there's no provision for that in the legislation, but it's something that we can take forward. I've said, I'll take that vote again. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Good point. I have actually previously made that point.
Telephone box.
Yeah, one of the councillors who has been here since the dark ages remembers the times when we were on telephones and might have been absent from the meeting. So we're moving on to item 10.2, reports and recommendations from community boards. This is an item which was tabled from a previous meeting. So I would encourage elected members to cast their minds back to the previous debate that we had, because we're continuing that debate today. So I don't expect people to be repeating points that they made at the previous meeting. I'll be encouraging people to add to the debate today.
I'd like to move it.
Okay, so Councillor Wilson has indicated that he'd like to move it, but and Liz has, Councillor Coe is willing to second. Ahead of that, I'm just going to invite any questions. Councillor Wilson, have you got a question?
Me? No.
No, Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. So in one of the emails sent from council staff, they said that they were going to include the document that showed the lease arrangements from DOC to KCDC. Is that actually included in this information?
No, it hasn't been appended.
I don't recall that requirement for this agenda.
So it was actually stated it was going to be included. I've got the email.
So was that said at the meeting, at the last meeting, that was going to be included, or was that a request via email? That
Was
it a request from the chair? That
no, it
be
wasn't. It was
included in the
actually
agenda?
something that a member of staff offered to do.
At the meeting, or
I
in an
said by email.
Okay, so that hasn't been communicated to me. We've been informed that it's not appended. Any further questions?
Yes, I have. Could I be provided, or could we please be provided with the criteria upon which the Rikiorangi playground was decided on, please? Considering that there were $60,000 worth of applications that were declined, that were not considered for this application.
So I'll answer that. I believe the criteria for the other Waikanae Fund are freely available to the public, and they're available to you, Councillor Pravanov. And we're aware that the criteria for this fund are under development, and I'll invite Mark de Haas to add to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I just wanted to respond to an earlier question about the gazetted part. So the previous paper didn't talk about the ownership of the land or the gazette, but we did make a commitment to add that to the paper, and it is in the paper. It's in paragraph 11.2, so it has been added to the paper.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Pravanov?
It talks about it, doesn't actually show the document.
Yeah, we've been advised that the actual document is not appended to the paper, but it's referred to within the report. Any
Okay, thank
further
you.
questions? Councillor Cooper.
It was just a question around the purpose of the fund is to improve council-owned properties. So can we have clarity whether this is actually council-owned property? And if it's not, how do we reconcile going outside the purpose? Because I was a little bit confused. It sort of said it was, then it said it wasn't, from my reading of it. So just some clarity on that, thanks.
So this was covered in a discussion this week, at which most councillors were present, but I'll invite a response from staff.
The community. It's a question of the community as much as this table.
Okay, I'll invite a response from staff. Brendan?
The hall is council owned, and the land that the hall sits on is council owned. The adjacent piece of land where the playground's proposed is that dock land that's gazetted to council to manage and have authority over, akin to ownership.
Any further questions?
Yeah, so when the purpose is council-owned properties, does include leased land, gazetted land, loan land, as long as it's under control of council? Is that the interpretation of owned? Is that what we're saying? Which is fine, it's just a question.
Okay, I'll invite a response to that, and then I'll move on, because I
That-
think
that's how
we've
we,
had a response.
That's how we understand it, yeah. Yes.
Yep. Mr. Mansell?
Just a question for Mr. de Haas. The cost that is allocated to that fund each year, what interest rate is that allocated at? And is that greater than the amount that you would pay for lending through the local government lending facility?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So the interest that gets applied to that fund year on year is based on, it's the same interest that gets applied to the Waikanae Capital Improvement Fund. So in the past, it used to be based on our weighted average cost of capital. Now it's actually based on specific bank interest rates. and the interest that we apply to those funds is generally higher than what we borrow from LGFA.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any further questions. I believe Councillor Wilson was moving this, Councillor Coe seconding. Right of introduction.
Just briefly, this meets all the criteria. It's a superb new facility that the council's has been involved in for quite a long time, and so yeah, this moves it along. It's nice.
Mr. Mansell,
A very full
you get to
introduction.
speak this time.
Huh?
You get to speak this time.
Hurrah. Thanks, everybody. The reason this is appearing on the paper is probably because of a discussion I had with Mark de Haast, who alerted me to the existence of the Waikanae Property Fund. It's something that I delved back into history, and it goes back as far as, or previous to 2007. It's only been spent twice in that time. Looks like about 60,000 in 2008 and about 30,000 in 2021. An additional 100,000 was added to it in 2022. So this is a very long-standing dollop of cash, well not cash, so dollop of money that has been sitting on the books and, as Mr de Haast said, costing ratepayers money. It's more expensive to pay the interest on this than to borrow from local government. It may not be cash now, but it was cash, and it came in from Waikanae assets, and the money was then taken off and used elsewhere. May or may not be council, but we don't know. I'd say that Rikarangi is a separate geographical area and with a council-owned hall, but there is no playground in that area at all. And if you look through the long-term plan or even the annual plan, we've got upgrades of existing playgrounds going on all throughout the district, while one area has no playground. It's true that the land is owned by DOC, but it has actually passed all the obligations to maintain and improve that to the council. So I think it covers the council-owned land area. Rikarangi Residents Association are actually going to contribute some of their own money to this playground, $15,000 from a fairly small community, but they have fundraised pretty hard. They have sourced all the equipment, which from the quotes was going to be about $45,000, so they wanted a bit of extra from us to bring it up to something quite decent. They'd worked pretty well with the Parks and Reserves Department to make sure that what was being supplied was going to be appropriate, and that the Parks Department have been helpful and will continue to be helpful in preparing the ground and such like for the project. So for all these reasons, I think it is it's almost a no-brainer to, and I say that with my Waikanae hat on, to get in and get this done. The council are going to take over the running or the control of the project, so it will be done to meet council's health and safety obligations. So it seems to me that it's a good project. It's a good use of money that's been sitting there forever doing nothing, that has a specific tag to be spent in Waikanae. So let's get on and spend some. We could hold on to it for another project, but when would that other project turn up, and would someone pay a quarter of it or a third of it? So I commend this to you and hope that, as I have no vote, that you will vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mansell. I'm going to jump in next and thank the community board for bringing this to the table, and thank you for finding the means by which to achieve this project for the community. I'll be supporting this today. I note that it had unanimous support from the community board, and we have community boards for a reason, which is to decide what they would like to achieve in their communities and what their communities need. And Rekarangi is a part of the area of the Waikanae Community Board. So I've heard a few arguments about whether it's council owned. I think what's important when we're distributing grants is focusing on the reason why a rule is there, and the reason why that particular criterion is there is because we want projects which are going to be used by council and owned by the community, not on private land or Greater Wellington land, or for argument's sake. So whether we have a lease on this land and control the land, or whether we own it, it's the control part that's important. And I don't think we should get stuck on semantics around that. It's about what we're trying to achieve, which is a good project by the community, which is supported strongly by staff and by the community board. So I have no hesitation in supporting this today. I'll go to Councillor Coe.
Thanks. And just following on from that, in my view, the reason why we have that rule about investing in land that we own is to prevent us spending a lot of money on something that may eventually move out of our control. But I think if you look at this in the context of what it is we're spending the money on, it's a playground. How long do playgrounds last? You know, in 15 years' time, it will probably need to be completely redone. Are we going to lose control of that land in the next 15 years? I think not. So it's not a big deal. You know, I live in a small isolated community myself, and I understand the importance of these kind of facilities and those isolated areas where you need opportunities for people to come together. And as much as anything, it's a community resilience thing where you have a central focal point that enables people to build a sense of community. And finally, I'd just like to say that we need to be encouraging and supporting this kind of thing in our community, where we have volunteers who are spending hours and hours of their personal time to make things happen. You know, let's help them make it happen. We need more groups like this that are willing to put projects in front of us, and let's work on these things together. It would be a real slap in the face, I think, for this group that's worked so hard to turn them down. So let's just make it happen. It's not a huge amount of money in the overall scheme of things. As Richard said, it really is a no-brainer, and I will obviously am supporting this motion today. Thank you.
Councillor Pravanov,
Right, thank you.
have you got anything to add to what you said in the debate when we last considered this paper?
I can't remember what I said. So I have actually no issue with spending this money, and I actually have no issue with Rekarangi being granted some money in relation to this for a playground. My concern is that we actually don't understand the criteria upon which they are being given that money. So no more information has been added since this paper came before us at our last council meeting. And I suppose as a scientist and as an RMA hearing commissioner, I work on primary documents. A primary document is actually showing that lease document. So we can actually see, we can actually read what it says. We don't know that. And so to me, that's a very big question mark. And I actually encourage my fellow councillors to actually, try and understand this point. You know, we're hearing that the land is owned by DOC, and that we have one criteria, and that it isn't actually being met. So even if this application is declined today, that doesn't mean to say that's going to be forever. It's actually putting some good governance rules and processes in place to ensure that we all know why this money is being spent. And rather than spending the money now, then start figuring out what the criteria will be further down the line, I think is actually really, really important. So I will not be supporting this part of the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I do take on board what Councillor Paranov has just said. It's nice to have a criteria around a thing. That being said, fully support the funding going to Rikiorangi. I remember last triennium them coming to the community board meeting with regards to the plan that they'd done. It's a very comprehensive plan. A lot of time and effort's gone into this, and it's basically local looking after local. So very supportive of this. I did note on the district plan that the designation is open space zone. It's actually quite a large area, and if I remember the plan, but actually the plan itself actually covered almost the whole area. So this must just be a part of it, which they may come back to us for, and this fund may be able to be used again, or there'll be other funds that they may apply for. But we'll certainly be supporting this, but do take on board what Councillor Pravanov said, that there would be good to have a proper criteria around this, as we have for the other two funds that Waikanae has as well. Perhaps that we've got I think a recommendation there, the fourth one, that could perhaps be amended to maybe if that a criteria is put around this, or is investigated as well.
I'm happy to take that on board, and if request that council officers investigate the possibility of delegating the authority, providing the mayor with advice. So I'll take that on board and make sure there's some proper criteria around this fund. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to comment because I was at our last meeting where this was tabled. I was the one who put the procedural motion. I feel quite happy that we've been presented with the information that secures the decision, particularly around the funds and the clarity around ownership and all of that. So it's great to have this come back after having had a briefing earlier this week as well. And I'll be supporting this.
Councillor Wilson, right of reply.
Yeah, just to Councillor Pravanov's point, I think I find it a little bit disturbing when people say we don't know, and really what they are saying is I don't know. So I do know. Pretty much everybody in this room knows what the criteria is. The community board knew that well. When we discussed it, we had a meeting of the councillors and those who chose to attend during the week, where again it was explained. So if an individual person doesn't know something, that's fine. We don't all have to know everything. I don't know how to hammer a nail in straight, but I don't assume that everybody else doesn't know how to do that. But in this case, everybody else does know. So I just point that out. And I would like to give an apology to the Rikiorangi Residents Association, who have ticked all of the boxes and then some, have worked with our staff for months and months on this, actually, and to have had it delayed completely unnecessarily. The community board was unanimous in its support for this. And so today we get to tick the box and move on.
Okay, so we've had our debate. Right of reply. I'll put it to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
Aye. Division, please.
Called a division. Either Councillor Pravanov has called a division. Well, seeing as there's only one vote against, would you like, is it okay if we just record that you voted against?
That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. It's a bit easier, saves the Chief Executive a bit of an effort.
Actually, what if we just,
So we're moving on to item 10.3, amendments to council delegations to staff. Welcome, Sarah.
Kia ora koutou. So look, this paper is fairly straightforward. You'll be familiar with it. It proposes, so probably the key matter is on 27th of June, a motion was left to lie on the table around the Chief Executive's DFA. And so you'll see in the proposed recommendation that staff are resolving no change to the DFA at this time. The other changes in this report relate to some positional changes across various parts of council, across strategy and growth, the infrastructure team and the regulatory team and legal, as well as a few minor changes, minor operational changes to delegations in the strategy and growth team. So other than that, I'll take the paper as read. Happy to answer any questions, or there might be questions for our group managers on some of these as well.
Any questions? There don't appear to be any. Councillor Kirby, the Deputy Mayor, has moved. Councillor Wilson seconded. Right of introduction. Any debate? I'll put that to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you.
Thanks.
We move on to item 11, confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Kirby, seconded Councillor Coe. Any discussion? All in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried. I'll now invite somebody to move that we move into public excluded. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded. No? Moved by Councillor Coe, seconded Councillor Spires. Okay, I'll take note that I will not call on Councillor Wilson to move that we move into public excluded, though he may vote for it regardless. So that's been moved by Councillor Coe, seconded Councillor Spires. All in favour? Aye. That's carried.